It's difficult to overstate the importance of the Wolfenstein series, with Wolfenstein 3D paving the way for modern shooters and cementing this now 40-plus-year-old series into the history books. The series has been doing well since rebooting in 2014, but I want to go back and take a look at this little forgotten gem from 2009, simply titled Wolfenstein. Before Wolfenstein 2009 came out, there'd been quite a gap between games, with the game before this in the series being the fan favourite Return to Castle Wolfenstein in 2001. But with the lack of attention that this game gets, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the next game in the series was 2014's The New Order. Obvious controversies aside, the Wolfenstein series has been able to stand on its own with some really great games. It's not a Duke Nukem situation, so why is this game so forgotten? I remember the hype that I had for this game back when it released, purely from one late night game review show on the ABC that gave it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens, and I thought it looked so fucking cool. I went and bought it as soon as I had the money, and I've loved playing it since day one, to the point where my 360 is basically solely set up as the Wolfenstein 09 machine, thanks to a lack of backwards compatibility. Everyone else might have forgotten about this game, but I'm going to see if I still love it just as much as I did back then, so let's kill some Nazis. Now, this story might not have gotten a true sequel, but see if you think it holds up in its own right. So we start with a cutscene on a Nazi warship. Soldiers believe that there is an intruder on board, and go to inform the captain, only to find out that it's actually BJ, who has killed the captain and taken his coat. BJ is there to blow up the ship before they can bomb London, and needs to make an escape. The Nazis trap him, and he pulls a mysterious item out of the captain's coat. When they fire, he holds the device up, creating a shield that kills all the enemies. After this, BJ is able to escape in a plane just in time. This is fucking awesome. We cut to London for a meeting on some pretty secret shit regarding the supernatural medallion that we just scored, and apparently it's a device used by a clan of mystics who worship something called the Black Sun. Who they were was lost, but the symbol has been adopted by a German occult group called the Thule Society. You follow me here? The crystals in the medallion can only be found in the German city of Eisenstadt, so we're going to go meet up with the resistance group, the Kreisau Circle, and find out what we can about this big-shot Nazi named General Zeta. We reach the city, but our cover is blown before we've even arrived. We have to fight our way through the train station. We meet Eric Engel, who is with the Kreisau Circle, and he asks us to help him blow up a special operations train the Nazis have at the station, so of course we oblige. We fight our way through, and then when we do blow up the train, we are sent up in the air by a strange energy. There's no time to stop, however, when we make our way out of the station. As we are leaving, there are more things blowing up, sending our enemies up in the air, making them easy pickings for us. Once we leave the station, we're off to meet the Kreisau Circle leader, Caroline Becker.
Follow me.
I always like this first level. It sets up the tone of the game really well and gives you a taste of the weird shit to come. Caroline informs us at the last location they spotted General Zeta, an archaeological dig site, which is where we run into a man being held hostage named Sergei Kovlov, who is part of the Golden Dawn, a group who studies the occult. He gives us a bit of info, so we tell him to meet up with us later once we clear out the guys ahead. Once we have our hands on the medallion, Sergei explains how it works. We learn about the Veil. While we're in the Veil, we need to watch out for these creatures called Geists, who may attack us. After this, we're off to find the Nachstone Crystal, which gives us some sick slow-mo abilities. And once we're done with that, it's back to the base. Caroline is happy with our work, but there's no time to waste, as the Resistance needs help attacking the Nazis at an abandoned church where they're building a strange device. So we're off to fuck shit up, of course. We arrive in the area, and shit's going off. That rave is the place to be. While we're busting through the lines, we're confronted with a big fella with some heavy armor and a pretty crazy weapon. He's killed our whole unit, so we need to take him down. After shooting his weak spots, he explodes, and we take his particle cannon, which is fucking sick. Yeah, the gunplay in this game is pretty fucking sick, but I'll get to that. Eventually we make it to the church. Now we need to destroy the big machine that they've got. Once we do, we're confronted by a group of Nazis that tell us to surrender, but we ain't about that. The machine explodes, taking out everyone. We appear to be protected, but this fella over here seems a little worse for wear, however. Fuck, that was quick. Moving on. We meet up with the Golden Dawn, who aren't too pleased with us having the medallion, but decide to work with us anyway. The leader, Alexandrov, asks us to meet an informant who mentions a nearby farm needing investigating and hopes we can rescue some hostages. We make our way there. After a bit of rigmarole, we kill all the Nazis there and head underground to find this huge underground base. We eventually find a hostage who tells us that the Nazis have a crystal down there that we need to steal, while he finds an escape route.
I heard last week one of the creatures broke loose and killed an entire squad.
Yeah, it was quite a mess. But don't worry, the handlers can control the creatures. I just wish we had more than two for...
Creatures? Those are the least of your problems, fellas. We eventually grab the crystal, which takes down their shields and gives us more to play with, but we've got to be quick and get out of there as the base is about to explode. Hey, they aren't so bad. Shit's getting pretty hectic though, so we jump on the train and get the fuck out of there. Alexandrov gives us a bit of a lecture like a pissed off police chief, but we get results, goddammit, and he continues to ask us for help.
Now, I don't know how they do things down at that dog and pony show they call the
Allied Forces.
But here we have rules.
We go see an informant at the local hospital. He's telling us about this weird activity that's going on, but the staff are brutally murdered by some invisible guy. Cheeky fucker. Heading through the hospital, we can see some pretty fucked up shit going on. Eventually, the invisible guys stop playing games with us and try and get all up in our face, but we ain't having a bar of it. Deep in the hospital, we find a scientist telling an officer in front of a portal that everyone that they sent through comes back altered in some way. Once we show up, chaos ensues.
Now, you will witness just how powerful the Nazi army is destined to become!
We destroy the portal, but it sucks us in with the monster that it created. Before we get it on, he gets sucked up into the Black Sun, however, and we get sent back. After heading back to the Crosshair Circle, Caroline won't stop pissing in our pocket over how great we are and mentions parts of the machine that we destroyed at the church have been tracked to a cannery. So we go do some reconnaissance. Or kill everything that moves, maybe? All I'm saying is, I think my way is working if recruitment's up. I sure hope no one from the Resistance is listening right now. Anyway, we head to the cannery and destroy some pretty cool big gun thingo with itself, and this room full of ammo tells me I might be a little late home for tea. We head to the next room and look who's waiting for us, the big boy himself. Zeta puts up a little bit of a fight, but we take care of him in a lovely bloody fashion. Get out of there just in time for drinks at the pub. Caroline finally comes around to my way of doing things, but we've got to move downtown as things are getting pretty heavy. As we're heading down there, Caroline managed to get herself caught.
We just received word she's being held at a castle outside of town.
Oh, fuck yeah, castle. Fucking classic, let's go. The raid's going pretty well. We're just ruining these guys, and the invisible dudes are easily dealt with using the flamethrower. Things take a twist when we finally catch up to the baddies, only to see old mate Death's Head, who's pretty keen on some revenge, but shit goes sour, and in the scuffle, Caroline gets herself shot. Oh, good one, fuckwit. Came here for nothing. Anyway, Queen Geist comes through the portal and then destroys it, so it's up to us to stop it. We defeat it in what is a pretty decent two-phase boss fight. Of course it ends in a nice bloody fashion. After that, Eric tells us that Death's Head is demanding revenge, and the Nazis may be getting ready to fire some Black Sun-powered weapon, so it's off to the airfield to board the Zeppelin floating over the town. Oh yeah, there's this Zeppelin that's been floating over the town the whole game. Probably should have mentioned that. Sneaking into the airfield starts off well, but shit goes sour pretty quickly, and soon enough we're making our assault. Fucking up jetpack dudes, disintegrating those glowing dudes, and soon enough we've gotten to the Zeppelin. In a shocking twist of events, we find that Dr. Alexandrov has actually been working for Death's Head the whole time. But after they've gotten what they needed from him, he gets executed before the baddies disappear into the portal. We follow them through and confront Death's Head in the other dimension, after which we take on his bestie, Hans, and destroy all our crystals. Once the weapon is dealt with, we've got to get the hell out of there, so we steal a parachute and make our heroic escape from the Zeppelin. Once we land, the medallion disintegrates in our hand, and our mission is complete. Yeah, this is a classic Today in World War II story with a paranormal twist. It's a bit silly, but it establishes early that it's not really trying to be anything too serious. It's not as ambitious as the newer titles, but it fits in well within the Wolfenstein series. Anyway, let's talk about where this game really excels. Now, this game might be considered a little bit of a black sheep in the series, but that doesn't stop it from bringing quality to the table in a variety of different ways. There are a few things that set this game apart from the other titles, but one of the main differences is the open world aspect. You'll be going through different areas around the city of Eisenstadt to get to your next mission, which is a great way of breaking things up. This also opens up the opportunity for a few optional side missions, which can be worth checking out. Overall, I really like this aspect of the game, and the setting works well, giving it a more World War II feel overall, while adding that strange paranormal twist to keep things crazy. Speaking of the paranormal, the Veil side of this game is a lot of fun, and helps add to the gameplay in a few creative ways. Over the course of the game, you'll unlock a few powers, including slow motion, a shield, and a damage upgrade, which all need to be charged by either these weird pools of energy or by the tanks that the Nazis have been stashing around. These powers are incredibly handy when faced with a pretty hectic crowd, and don't strictly have to be used individually. On the flip side of this, you will have to be careful as it does drain quickly. The Veil will also allow you to move through certain walls to get to other areas, which will be essential at times, but just using the Veil on its own without anything fancy doesn't drain very fast. All of these powers can be upgraded, but it ain't cheap, so it brings in another aspect of the game that can be somewhat essential, and that's finding collectibles. Upgrades are unlocked throughout the game, obviously, but you'll need to find gold, intel, and tomes to unlock and pay for all of these. Gold is the easiest to find, and is hanging around both in missions and around the city of Eisenstadt. I usually spend more on upgrading weapons myself, as there's a handful of really cool upgrades for each weapon. Weirdly enough, there's no pistol in this game, unless you want to play multiplayer that is, but if you want to go stealth, you'll have to either silence the MP40 or the Kar98. All the weapons are pretty killer in this game, with a noticeable difference between the real world guns and the crazy energy weapons, so you'll definitely find room to use every weapon to some degree. There's no dual wielding like in the later games, but I'm not really bothered by that.
Now, one thing that's essential with making the weapons fun is sound design. Holy shit, does this game do it well.
The weapons in this game sound fantastic, and really feel powerful. The machine guns are great, but the Kar98 is just fucking glorious. The energy weapons aren't slouches either, and hold up well with the rest. Most of the energy weapons aren't used by the enemies, but there's a decent variety of enemies to keep things entertaining. The invisible dudes can certainly catch you off guard if you're not prepared, and the guys using the Veil powers themselves can move around pretty quickly and even shield the other soldiers, so it's best to deal with them as early as possible. The boss fights are all pretty good, which can't really be said for the other games I've reviewed so far, but more to the point, it feels like the game is actually designed with them in mind. The final boss fight is pretty cool, with your powers being taken away in each section, but even with the boss fights aside, some of the enemy arenas are tough enough on their own.
As a package, the mechanics are great, with a few exceptions that can be partly left down to the era the game was made in.
One of my minor gripes is that the time between aiming and firing could have been a bit tighter, but that's nothing too serious. The two main things that stand out as dated to the period include the lack of health bar, and you guessed it, limited sprint. Normally I would leave these till the end to rant about, but honestly, these aspects don't ruin the game for me. The COD-style health regeneration is balanced well enough, and I don't really play many games with this mechanic, so maybe that's why it didn't bother me that much. The limited stamina, while unnecessary for my silly Nazi killing game, isn't so limited that it's pissing me off like AVP. At the very least, BJ the Nazi destroyer can reload while sprinting, and that alone earns some forgiveness.
Gameplay aside, I'm sure you've noticed, this game looks fucking amazing.
Aside from some dodgy facial animations, the visuals in this game definitely hold up well alongside its contemporaries, with not only some great looking graphics, but also some fittingly brutal gore going on. Of course, this stuff has only gotten more detailed with the newer titles, but for 2009 there's a lot to like here, and it adds so much more to the gunplay when you're taking off limbs, or even having an enemy disintegrate right in front of you. The Veil looks suitably weird, working well to separate the two sides. One of my favourite levels is the hospital. It's got so much atmosphere, and really pulls you into this horrific environment where all this nasty experimenting is going on. Visually, it has such a disturbing vibe, and seeing all the blood everywhere tells you its own story. Of course, this may seem a little bit tame when put up against the newer titles, which went all in with much higher concepts within its story and extreme brutality within the world. But when looking at Wolfenstein 09 as its own contained piece, there's a lot there that helps it fit in with the more classic titles before it. So with that in mind, I think it's time to wrap things up.
I've definitely made it pretty obvious that I love this game, warts and all, and it's always been one of my favourites of the 360 era.
It's not as if I'd say the game is perfect either. There's definitely a few things here and there that would hold it back for people. The newer games have much tighter gameplay and more ambitious stories, but for a World War II game sandwiched in the middle of the 360 era, this one holds its own pretty damn well.
All things considered, this one gets an 8 out of 10 from me. If you haven't given it a go already, do yourself a favour and go and play it. Anyway, that's all from me today. I'll catch you next time.